we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome to the October virtual Texas Tug meeting. We're so happy to have everyone here on the call. Looks like we have about 58 of us on here, which is awesome, so exciting. Today we will be having a special presentation from Signature Systems Group, and I'm going to kind of flip over to our agenda here to get us started. So this is the meeting's agenda today. We'll start with some welcome and introductions. We'll go over some housekeeping because we're kind of pivoting to a little bit of a different format for this meeting. As you can tell, we're using Zoom meeting rather than Zoom webinar. Which, by the way, at the end of this meeting, we'd love to hear your feedback on this approach. If you enjoyed that, if you didn't, we thought it would be a little more fun. And since we're not able to meet in person, this kind of gives you the opportunity to see your peers, wave to them if you want to, if you see them on there, chat them if you can. But yeah. And a note for next month's meeting, the date will be November 12th. We're still solidifying the topics and the speakers. And again, if you guys have any ideas on specific topics that you want to hear, or you know someone or yourself would like to speak, feel free to reach out to us because we would be super excited to have you on one of these meetings. And then also today, we're going to allow the option and opportunity for you to share your thoughts on Tableau Conference. If you were able to attend, what was your favorite session? Was there something cool that you heard about that you'd love to share with everyone? Or is there something that you potentially learned at conference that you're now applying into your everyday? We would love to hear your thoughts. And then of course, we'll pivot over into Colin's presentation and then kind of wrap it up with some Q&A. So introduction for myself. My name is Rachel Mason. I'm with Technion Data Solutions on the marketing team. I'm pretty new to the Tableau scene, but have been helping out with the tugs for about a year now for the DFW tugs. So happy to be here, happy to be collaborating with the whole Texas tug group, which also includes the San Antonio tug, the Austin tug, a little bit of the Houston tug, and then of course the DFW tug group as well. So a little fun activity I would love to see in the chat if you are associated with a tug, where you're coming from. So if you're from the DFW group, type in the chat DFW. If you're from Houston, San Antonio, anywhere in Texas, would love to see where you're from. And then if you're out of state, would love to see that as well. Oh, awesome. Okay. We have people from all over. A lot of Austin, DFW. Oh, Missouri, awesome. Thank you so much for joining. Cool, very cool. Okay, so some housekeeping is that we, for at least when we share for Tableau Conference, we would encourage you to come off mute and share your thoughts. Again, if you aren't comfortable with doing this, you're more than welcome to share your thoughts in the chat. But also, we're going to reserve the chat for any questions you may have during Colin's presentation. We ask that you just kind of respect when he's speaking to just type your questions. But for the beginning of this meeting, you're more than welcome to go off mute if you have anything that you would like to share with us. And with that, I'm going to pivot us over to talk about Tableau Conference. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we can see everyone here. So would anyone have any burning ideas, epiphanies that you would love to share from Tableau Conference? You are more than welcome to go off mute now. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Yeah, with that, I'll open the floor. You could talk anything from favorite session, something small or big that you learned that was super cool. Even if you want to talk about John Legend, if any of you tuned in to hear a little bit of his singing, we would love to hear it.
Maybe we could start by inviting everyone who attended at least part of the conference to raise their hand using that raise your hand button.
Or even you can just raise your hand here.
I'll share my thoughts.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Jessica, I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. So thank you for letting me into the Texas
Thanks for
state.
joining.
I was a newcomer to Tableau this year, Tableau Conference. I believe my favorite session was Data and Diversity with Wade Davis. I was really impressed to see inclusion and diversity included in the content. And he just had a really inspiring message. So
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing.
So I'll share. The Tableau speed tipping is pretty much the only reason I attend. It's my favorite. But I don't know what your favorite is, but I thought I'd share.
Awesome. Was there at least one thing that you took away from one of those sessions that was your favorite? Something new that you didn't know before?
Just new features. It's kind of cool to see what's new. Other than that, it's a little bit different this year because it doesn't really carry the same effect as being in a spot, and it's less of an event, but it was still fun to see what's new and all that stuff.
Yeah. Awesome.
I had a favorite session, the sets versus parameter actions and when to use what and when they're useful. Sets is something that I've really not dove into to this point, and so it was really cool to see what they can do.
Awesome. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing, Kyle.
I like the marked layers that are coming up. It'd be so awesome to move beyond the dual access that we were restricted to before. If anyone has had to work outside and, you know, with ArcGIS or QGIS just to get your stuff done, this is a big announcement.
Awesome. I love the hat, by the way, Amy.
No, thanks.
I like the format of I'm with Amy on that, on the map layers. I thought that was awesome too. So, and also like to Ian's point, I love the speed tipping. But devs on stage is probably like my favorite. So like stale content feature was awesome. The Excel export option was awesome. And I thought the built-in LODs are really going to be helpful this year.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Iman. Dimitri, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, the format of the brain dates was better suited to the online format, whereas
That's
before
right.
the physical conference, I'd be running between sessions and I wouldn't have any time for brain dates. I was able to actually attend several brain dates during or after the conference and reach out personally and open it up to answer people's Tableau prep questions. So I was able to connect with a lot of people and help them solve that, which gave me a few ideas for what to do. Now the conference is over. Just keep answering those questions.
Awesome. Yeah, I heard that from several people now that they really enjoyed the format, at least for the brain dates this year. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else like to share before we pivot over? Was everyone able to attend all 3 days or primarily just one day? I know some people would record or request a video of a session and then go back and watch it later. I know that I did that for a few myself. Okay, awesome. Thanks so much for sharing. And at this time, I'm gonna pivot over to our speaker for today, which is the awesome Colin, who is from Signature Systems Group. He is the BI manager for Signature Systems Group, which he'll get into a little more about the company, but it is a global manufacturer and distributor of innovative industrial matting and specialty flooring systems, which I know is a mouthful. And like we talked in some of our meetings leading up to now, is that he's basically a professional Lego making company, but on a larger scale, obviously. So Colin is originally from the New York City area. He graduated from Cornell University in 2013 and has been working for Signature Systems Group ever since. Colin is also a current graduate student at Georgia Tech and is pursuing a master's degree in analytics. And so with that, I'm gonna pivot over to Colin.
All right, thank you so much. I really appreciate everyone taking some time out of your day to hop on. You know, for the people that came even from out of state, wow, that's really exciting. Really glad to have you on. And so, yeah, I will share my screen and we can get started here. And so what we'll do, let me know if you can see the screen. Rachel,
Yep,
that's gone through. All right. So once again, a little bit of background on me. As Rachel said, I'm the business intelligence manager at Signature Systems. That is a pretty wide-ranging title. We're a small team, and so my job will entail everything from strategic planning, infrastructure, all the way to actually doing Tableau and Alteryx development, and we'll get into that in a little bit as we go further. As we said, I'm originally from the greater New York City area. If anyone is familiar, I'm from Westchester County, and then went up to Cornell for school, where I studied communication with minors in applied economics and information science. Shortly thereafter, I started at Signature Systems and have been working there ever since. So for 7 years, and I've been able to kind of see a lot of different things, get my hands dirty with a lot of different areas of the business. So it's been really exciting to learn a lot, and I've been really happy with the experience. In 2017, I moved down here to Texas. I'm based in the DFW area, and I am, as we said, currently a graduate student at Georgia Tech. I'm pursuing my master's in analytics with a focus in computational data analytics. And most importantly, I am recently engaged. So that's something that we have to mention there. So who is Signature? Yes, as we had mentioned, it is quite a mouthful to describe succinctly. So I'm going to do my best here. We are an industrial flooring manufacturer. Some of our main applications are for portable roadways, for crane and construction usage, for stadium flooring, for disaster relief. So if you see here, the image on the left is a transmission and distribution line. That's one of our major spaces. Essentially what happens is if a company's putting up new transmission lines or repairing existing ones, very oftentimes they don't have a really nice road to get out and work in these desolate areas. So what they'll do is they'll put our product down. It will expand for miles. They'll drive heavy machinery up, and then sort of continue going until the entire stretch of line has been either built or repaired. On the right side, you see some of our stadium flooring products. If you've ever been to a concert at a stadium and you are standing on a flooring, that's very likely ours. It protects the grass below, so that way stadiums can get much more usage out of their venue. Disaster relief, we have done work with government agencies. We've done work with private agencies as well to put a flooring down in tents and in other environments. We did a lot of work after the devastation in Haiti a little while back. So to create a really stable platform and make something a lot safer for everyone. We are based, our corporate headquarters in Flower Mound, Texas, like I said, just north of DFW, and we proudly manufacture in the United States in Orlando, Florida. And it's easy to kind of describe, but it's kind of hard to picture what we do. So I've got a couple short clips for us to show you exactly what we do. This first clip, we won't see the whole thing, but just worth mentioning, Megadeck is our main large product. So here's what we do. And then the other side is our stadium side. So this will give you another quick picture of that. All right. So I think the video really shows a good picture of what we do and the scope of our business. So some background on the problem that we were facing. We come from humble beginnings, and a story that I'll tell anyone that'll listen is, like I said at the beginning, I've been with the organization for around 7 years now, and the organization now and when I started were basically two different companies. When we first started, if our salespeople wanted to get a quote out, they would open up the ERP system, they would log in, they would type in the quote, they would print it out, scan it, email it out to their customer, who would then print it, sign it, scan it, and either email it or mail it back to us. When it would come back into our side, the salesperson would go print it out, physically walk downstairs and put it into an actual inbox for the accounting team and operations teams to process. From that point, we have made a significant amount of progress. We've implemented new CRM and ERP platforms. We've brought on all sorts of sophistication on our reporting side. And about 4 years ago, we brought Tableau on. And really, it was designed to give some more insight into our business. And I remember the CEO asked me, basically, I need a report on who our customers are, what they bought, when they bought it, and what do you think they're going to buy in the future? So it's just kind of a really wide range of questions. And I said, look, I've got this tool. I'll bring it out and I'll see if you like it. And I created a Tableau dashboard for him with a student license. He pulled up Tableau Reader. If any of you guys remember those days, brought up Tableau Reader, saw it, and we signed a contract within a week. So that really shows a lot of the sophistication that we brought on. And all of this really turned into a reporting bottleneck within the IT department. And so we had a much more sophisticated platform in Tableau to provide insight into our business. But across the organization, whenever anyone needed a report, they would come to our IT team. And we are an IT team of 3. So as you can imagine, this would cause dramatic bottlenecks. The wait times to get some of this data would be pretty significant. And overall, we weren't able to meet the needs of our internal customers. We needed a self-service platform so that way we could democratize data throughout the organization. And so that way everyone could pull their own data and derive insights when they need it. However, as you can imagine, our data was extremely siloed. We had brought all of the systems on in a very piecemeal way without having an overarching theme or design. And so what ended up happening is we had all of these data in all of these different silos, and it became extremely difficult to access and put it all together. And more than just that, the skill that was required in order to do so was really high. And we'll get into that in a minute. Across our organization, we had low data literacy. I love this graphic on the right here, because we knew that we wanted to get better with data. We knew that we wanted to improve our decision making, but we didn't really know what that meant. If I had asked every single person in the organization what an inner join was, I would have gotten a lot of blank stares and maybe one person that would know conceptually what it is, but no one could actually write the queries. No one had heard of Tableau. So the literacy across the organization was pretty low. And of course, with all of this, we had a low budget. So what did we do? So we thought about our organization in a data access and skills matrix. And this is a concept that I absolutely love and think can be applied to a variety of different settings. On the x-axis here, you have our access to data. And these are conceptual numbers. You could spend a whole lot of time sort of deriving where you think your organization fits on these axes. But I think if you have the skill level to do that, I don't think that this is something that's really going to be required for you. And so you have a continuum of access to data and then the skill level that was required to access data. And as you can see from our point, the access to data was extremely low and the skill level that was required to access it was really high. And that is not what you want for democratized data. And as I need not to say, that's not good. That's not what we are looking to do. So we really looked at that and we figured that we need to improve both of these dimensions in order to get to a place where we want it to be. With all of our constraints, we had to get creative. And so the first thing that we did is we did a design thinking session and we worked with Technion to do that. I have to give a shout out there, to bring a cross-functional team together. And we brainstormed and we asked everyone the question, what do you need at your fingertips? If I could give you this, it could make you that much better at your job. And after doing all of these different sessions, we worked in a cross-functional way. We then had individual follow-ups with the individual functional units. We actually discovered that about 80% of our needs could fit into about 20% of our data. And so what we did is we leveraged Alteryx and its integration with Tableau to create a platform to do so. And we have to say, the integration between Alteryx and Tableau is incredible. This is an example of one of our workflows. You can see everything on the left side and all the way down is a query into our different data sources. All of that coming in, being transformed, and put together into a single flat output that we used the Tableau hyperfiles to store. We had a Tableau online license for quite a few people. So what we did is we used Tableau online to create what we called a data mart. And I know in this room, it's not a pure data mart by any stretch of the imagination, but I think the term is really good for our organization to kind of explain, hey, here's all of the data sources that we've put together that grab data from all of these different systems that gives you a place where you can access them. In addition to that data mart, we created data source guides. And what these were, I think, were pretty instrumental in the organizational success that we've had. What they did is they explained every single field in business terms, not technical terms, what they meant. What are the options that are available? You know, this is not a data dictionary that you'd hand to a database administrator. This is something you can give to a manager or to even to a frontline employee that way they can understand, here is what data we have access to and here is how it works. But not only that, we also specifically mentioned the data lineage. So we explained for those users that are so used to their source systems, this field translates to this field in your source system. So that way it would allow the users to have a really quick and easy way to sort of trace it back, and they'd have a much better understanding of what we put together. But so that solved our access problem, but we still didn't have the skill problem solved. So what we did is we created an internal analytics team. And we had mentioned that we didn't have a high budget for it, so we couldn't hire an analyst to come in to do a lot of the work for us, and that wouldn't have really solved our problem because what we needed to do was spread the usage throughout the organization. So we created a cross-functional analytics team of people that showed aptitude or interest or both in learning about data and learning about analytics. And we're a Microsoft Stack house, so we used Microsoft Teams to create a channel that will be a central hub for all of this information. As you can see in the slide, there was a section for files. You could look at all of the videos, the training videos that we had put together. You could even book a training if you wanted to, right from there. And we created a place where people could share what they were doing. They could share and give tips and give advice, and really have a centralized place to answer questions and think, collectively on how do we solve these kinds of problems. And like I said, we did trainings, homeworks, so that way the team could sort of try to put together something very focused and targeted. But we also did a viz contest, something to get people excited, to try to drum up interest in the resources that we had put together for them. But how did we put all of this together? Well, we leveraged resources that Tableau offers. And the big resource that I think is very much underutilized within the Tableau community is Blueprint. Blueprint is an amazing way to take all of the best practices and implement them. Like we said, with an IT team of 3, we're not coming with a wealth of knowledge on best practices on how to build a community and to educate a team on how to start up with Tableau. I had learned in online classes. I mean, I can't just tell my entire team, go, here's some classes, go learn and then come back to me. We had to create an education plan and a training process. That's something that we can repeat and is relatively customizable based on the skill level of the employee. Really what we were trying to do is build community. We were trying to build a community internally, an engaged community of people that were interested in Tableau, that could learn and learn how to boost their skills. We had use cases by functions. That way, if someone would come to us and say, look, I get this is really cool, but how do I use it for me? We could point them to specific use cases, and that way they could start off with something as opposed to starting from scratch. We learned about executive advocacy and learning about how to bring on executive sponsors. Our IT director and our CFO were instrumental in doing all of this. They advocated at the managerial and executive level to discuss, this is why this is so important. And now we have executives in our organization that are using Tableau. We even had our CEO create some visualizations himself. And so we really tried to build a community internally and build something that would be relatively customizable. One of the other resources that I think is really underutilized from Tableau is e-learning. It's a relatively low-cost platform that provides customized learning paths for every skill level. So that way you can learn and you can get better no matter where you are. And it's all web-based, self-guided, and it really is something that we would leverage. So that way, whenever the users wanted, if they had a little bit of time, they could go in and learn, and they could get better, and they could boost their skills. One of the things that we also implemented that was instrumental in this culture of experimentation is a personal sandbox. And what this was is it was a single folder for our organization's users to practice. And I'll walk you through quickly on our right side what our setup looks like. We've got the data mart, which has the actual data sources. We've got some functional reports, and these are sort of what the executives teams and the functional unit teams use to see their information, to keep track of their KPIs and things of that nature. We had a place for quick ad hoc reports. So if we just made something for a single use, it would go there. And an archive, so that way we could split things out that were no longer supported. But if someone wanted to go through and look at what was there, we could see it. And if they found it useful, we could update it for them, or they could update it themselves. For those of you that are on the administrative side, if you haven't enabled admin insights, I strongly recommend you do so. It is a location where you can get lots of information about your team's Tableau usage. You can see what views are popular. You can see who's creating views. You can see, people that might have been falling off a little bit. So you can kind of give that personalized touch. And then all the way at the bottom was the personal sandbox. And so the key with the personal sandbox is that it's permissions restricted. So the content owners only see their own content. What this means is that every single user would have a place to practice. And because we were all online, we were all in Tableau Online, this was a place where they could save their workbooks when they were trying things out. And their managers wouldn't be down their throats saying, what do these numbers mean? It's no, we don't want that kind of culture. We wanted a culture where you could learn and do things at your own pace. But in addition to that, the administrators can see all of the content. And so that allows us to work with those users to say, hey, I really like how you did that, and provide personalized praise and feedback within the organization and within those users. So we can use the things that we would learn in admin insights. We can look at the actual views that the team were creating in personal Sandbox, and we could give them feedback and give them praise for the things that they were doing. And so what we have for you is we have the instructions on how to set this up. And it's a post here. That's a really great post. I'm not going to walk through the entire step-by-step guide on how to do this. But what I will do here is I will drop this in the chat. Drop that in the chat. So if anyone is interested, you can take that and bring that back to your own organization. We have found this to be extremely helpful in accomplishing our goal here.
Hey, Colin, one
Yes.
question real quick is all of your data stored on Tableau server?
So we don't have Tableau server. That's sort of one of the things that is a big restriction of ours. Our data was actually stored in the Tableau hyperfiles that Alteryx outputted. So we would put our Alteryx instance on a server, and it would output the hyperfiles into a specific location on that server. We had Tableau Bridge consistently running, and they would just be pointed to those hyperfiles, and they would pull those hyperfiles up into the cloud. So we don't use Tableau server. It would be wonderful, but it's just not the situation that we're in. And what the users would then be able to do is would just be able to click new and then create a new workbook with the data sources that we had pulled up into online.
Awesome. Michaela says, brilliant.
We had to get creative. I wasn't kidding. So what happened? Well, as you can imagine, we reduced that reporting bottleneck pretty dramatically. We realized that the vast majority of our reporting requests were really simple. What did this customer purchase this year? What customers purchased last year that didn't purchase this year? How has our manufacturing increased? Have we added more product? Basic kind of problems that can be solved with just a few clicks. And so users would be able to go to the data mart, grab the data sources that they needed, and be able to pull these quick insights without having to create this bottleneck in the IT department. As a result, the real benefit of all of this is we bought time. Our sophistication as an organization increased dramatically. The questions that we were able to start asking were questions that were a lot more high level than the questions that we were previously asking. And it allowed the organization to really see the value of data and the value of democratized data. As you'd imagine, the team was engaged. The team was really excited to work on this new technology and to better their skill sets. Whether or not it's something that they continue to use at Signature, and that's what we certainly hope for, we're giving them a skill that they can use for the rest of their careers. And we think that that's something that really energized that team and engaged them. But we really started to bring the concept together of a single source of truth. And it's something that us data people, we can always sometimes we take for granted, but essentially we would have problems where the business everyone would be fighting about whose data was right. And we stopped a lot of that and showed the benefit of consolidation. We showed the benefit of bringing all of that data together. And going back to the chart that we had at the beginning, we increased the access to data and lowered the skill level that was required in order to access. And that's where we wanted to be. It's a lot better than where we were with something that really didn't take a long time to set up and with not a lot of technical resources. And so where are we going? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this is a perfect platform. It's not. It's not going to be something that I can tell you is going to be something that you can immediately apply to your organization unless you're in a similar situation to ours. But it's a little bit inefficient. I'll be candid about that. We've got lots of different Alteryx workflows that are all working behind the scenes, and they're not incremental. They're, whole source system updates. So you don't have a lot of the benefits that you would from a normal centralized platform, but you start to get the organization used to having this data at their fingertips and being able to pull data and derive insights. Engagement and training efforts is an ongoing practice. It's always something that we need to do. especially with COVID, and we changed our business model a little bit. There's a little bit of turnover within the analytics team. And so continual training, continual engagement is something that's critical. The way that we like to think of it is you're creating a training process. You want people to be able to come in and go through the process, not, hey, can I get 30 minutes of your time so that way I can get trained in this? It's how do we create something that's more self-sustaining? And we find that that's a lot more engaging when someone can, at will, go in and pull this data and get the information that they need. A big thing that we're going to be talking about, factory sensors. We're going to be, now that we've got a lot of our baseline reporting information pretty clean and standardized, we're trying to work on our factory. We're trying to work in our manufacturing side and seeing what data is coming off our machines. How can we use that to get better at our processes, to learn and get to improve our quality, to do all of those kinds of things that we would have never had the ability to do previously. And after all of this, we got the organization ready for a data warehouse. I think the real benefit of this approach for us is, like I said, it bought time. It allowed us to get to a point where our sophistication was such that we could start talking about data models. We could start talking about how we would store data all in one centralized location and the benefits that that has to the organization. And in that environment, we're planning on transitioning Alteryx to a little bit more of its traditional analytics role. With that in mind, we're going to be looking to implement predictive analytics. I mean, that's, predictive and prescriptive analytics is the goal, right? We want to be able to have our data work for us and allow our data to guide us forward. And so we're going to be able to take all of this data and take all of this newfound knowledge, and it's going to free us up to do a lot more complex analytics and really start to, we really see it as a competitive advantage that we have. That's something that, it's not that easy to replicate. And finally,
I was going to ask one quick question.
Sure.
Do you guys also use Alteryx for data prep? And
Yes.
if not, do you use Tableau prep?
Yes, so we use Alteryx for data prep, sort of essentially, and I hope there's no Alteryx sales reps on the call here. We essentially at the moment use it as an ETL tool. We grab data from all the different sources, and not only do we bring that all in, we do all of that data prep work in Alteryx flows, and then have that output in those hyper files.
Awesome. And then one other question is, do you use Ask Data?
Ask Data, we would like to get there, but not yet. It's something that I think like I said, we're trying to start use it. I think that that's something that would be a really nice feature for our team to use, especially on the executive side. It's something we haven't really pushed, but I think that it's definitely in our roadmap for the future.
Awesome.
And finally, I'd like to leave you with this chart here. We're all data people, right? And we take data for granted on a daily basis, but we have to consider, what's the point? What are the uses of data within an organization? And I find this chart really, really helpful to understanding some context around the data and the data activities that we are undertaking. At your base level, data is there to improve your decision making. It's there for you to help ask questions and answer them. Should I go after this target market? Is this customer someone that can get credit? Do we give a raise to our business intelligence manager? The answer is obviously yes. Do we, how are our sales reps performing? Do we need to add new sales reps? Those kinds of foundational decision-making questions are critical for critical use of data. But then you have that knowledge and you have those competencies. If you turn them internally, you start talking about operational efficiency, and you can use those competencies in partnership with other techniques for efficiency. Things like Lean and Six Sigma, if that's the way that your organization looks at processes, if that makes sense for you, and all other ways to monitor your business processes and find gaps and find ways to improve your efficiency. But that pinnacle is monetization. It's creating a revenue stream with your data And that's where we're planning on going. We're planning on creating a system where we can sell the data back to our customers and give them a unique value add that's not seen anywhere else in the industry. The ability to track their product, all sorts of different benefits that they have, that they're willing to pay a premium for our product and for our services. And as you guys all know, sometimes it's really hard to show your ROI when all you're doing is saving money, when all you're doing is improving efficiency. Sometimes it's really hard to show. But when you start to have more revenue streams coming in, it becomes a lot more visible, it becomes a lot more foundational, and it becomes really the identity of your organization. And so with that, I would like to say thank you to everyone. I really appreciate you guys hopping on today and taking some time out of your schedules. To the Tableau Advisory Council, thank you all for having me. I really appreciate it. Feel free, connect on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there and look forward to meeting and talking with people. And I will open the floor up to questions.
Awesome. So I can start off with reading a few from the chat, and then if you guys want to go off mute, you're more than welcome to ask questions as well. Millie is curious if you all have Alteryx Server as well.
Nope. We have one Alteryx Designer license, and we use Desktop Scheduler.
Awesome. Homer would like to know, how could you institutionalize system knowledge so that you are less dependent on subject matter experts?
I think a lot of that is going to be the centralized location of information. It's really getting those subject matter experts to be able to document a lot of their knowledge and having a place where people can all go to find out that information.
Awesome. And then Hannah is curious, is Alteryx worth the investment to speed up prep time? She said a lot of her time is spent consumed in Tableau prep right now.
Sure. Personally, so my role in particular, the Alteryx sort of developer as well as the strategic side, I love it. I think it is a really great tool. I don't know necessarily if it depends on your use case, how it compares to Tableau prep. I can't necessarily speak to if it's that much faster or better, but it kind of depends. If you're finding you need to make some workarounds in Tableau prep, then maybe Alteryx is worth a look. It's also worth mentioning that there are free trials of Alteryx. So that's actually how we got involved. I had a 14-day free trial. I got in and I started using it, and I really liked it from there. And so for us, it made a lot of sense.
Another question is, do you have any plans to implement the Tableau data catalog?
Yes. So that was something that was really exciting that we had seen. Initially, we wanted to just create the documentation in the Microsoft Teams site. So that way it would just be sort of one sort of centralized location. So they wouldn't have to go, you go to Tableau here for your data catalog, but then go to Teams for your trainings and some of the other things. But I think overall, streamlining the experience from their users' perspective is an area that we have to grow.
Another question is, do any of your products use RFID?
That's where we're going. We do use RFIDs. We're looking into some other technologies that are out there that are, depending on the scenario, it could be cellular based. That's, to be determined. But yeah, we're looking to leverage technology in our product. Absolutely. And we do use RFIDs now, but there are limitations to our use cases there.
Awesome. And then as far as your predictive analytic goals, what are you hoping to forecast? What tools and methods would you use to build your models?
The big area is our manufacturing side. Looking to predict and understand our manufacturing process is a big area that we're going to be able to leverage predictive models. We'd be able to, one of the things we're looking to do is determine if a part is good or not ahead of time. We can start to understand what thresholds our machines need to be in order to really produce optimal parts. And in terms of what we would actually use to create those models, is it would be Alteryx. We don't have an R or Python environment in our organization that we could just kind of spin up and get in and start, writing code. But we think that, there are R and Python tools within Alteryx. So we're planning on leveraging Alteryx to do that kind of predictive modeling and put that into place. And if there are things that Alteryx can't do with out of the box tools, there's a whole tool market out there that you can look to find other tools that people have developed. I know Technion has some themselves that they've developed. And other than that, you can just put in an R or Python canvas. So that's what we're planning on using on the predictive side, at least for now. Then things, customer retention, that's a big one. It's obviously a lot cheaper to retain customers than to get new ones. So trying to predict some customer churn is an area that we're looking to focus. It's kind of challenging because our sales cycles are very long and the useful life of our products are very long. But starting to get those flags ahead of time, if a customer's been purchasing pretty consistently and then it starts to drop off, is another area where I would say that we're looking to deploy those kinds of models.
Awesome. One question I have for you is, what would you say was the largest hurdle as far as starting the internal analytics team within your organization? What's something that you could encourage us with if maybe someone's in the same boat?
Yeah, I think the biggest hurdle, it wasn't that difficult to get people somewhat interested because, candidly, there's a lot of buzzwords, right? Hey, you're going to be on the analytics team. You're going to be able to learn how to use state-of-the-art software and improve your skill sets and those kinds of things. And those are going to get a lot of people in the door. But what I think was the biggest challenge was kind of saying, how can you use this for your job? And some of those things are really straightforward and, there are pretty easy use cases. But for us, that was a bit of a challenge in getting people to see how it was immediately applicable to them. And that's where Tableau Blueprint use cases were really helpful for us. And then just sort of our team getting together, getting in a room and sort of discussing what they currently do and ways that it can be used to improve their day-to-day lives.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any other questions they'd like to ask Colin? Feel free to go off mute or you can type it in the chat here. Colin, you're getting some great feedback in the chat.
Great.
Excellent presentation, awesome presentation, nice job. Thanks for sharing.
No, of course, we're really excited to tell our story. From thinking back and sort of reminiscing on where we were, and that's really why I shared that story at the beginning of where we were when I first started to where we are now. I mean, it's night and day, and it's exciting to see the change and hopefully be a part of it. So everyone, I really appreciate, like I said, taking some time out of your day to hear the conversation. I think what I'd like to leave you with is you don't always have to go from 0 to 100, right? You can step along the way and make progress while your organization kind of catches up to where you are. So we're really happy with where we are, and we're excited to see what the future holds. And thank you to everyone for having me to share the story.
Hey, Colin, got a couple more add-on questions.
Shoot.
First is, did you have any setbacks? Okay, like where you had to, put on the brakes, back up a little bit, and then turn the car a different direction?
Yeah, great question. Absolutely. When we first put this in place, the analytics team in place, we had a lot of engagement, a lot of excitement, and that kind of peaked and fell off a little bit. Like whenever you bring in a new technology, you're going to get that initial excitement, that initial push. And I think a lot of times in your planning process, you really have rock solid plans up until implementation and shortly thereafter. And so we saw a bit of a dip in engagement from that point on. And so what we did is we just tried to re-engage those members. We tried to see, hey, you were creating workbooks before, what happened? And what we actually found is they were able to automate some of their needs. Right. So they weren't needing to create as many workbooks because the things that they needed on a day in, day out basis were automated in a way that they weren't before. So I think that in our side, working through that initial dip was something that is certainly to be expected and was something that we had to address, or else it would have been something that had an initial push and then kind of faded away.
Yeah. And then, you partially answered it, but I'll just say it explicitly. What things are you doing or plan to do to really maintain that momentum of that data-driven culture? Are you having any kind of meetups or get-togethers, or a bulletin board where people can post ideas, or forming task forces to work on a specific project that was maybe on the side? Things like that keeps people's imagination going, and not like what you said, hey, I've got my problem solved, it's automated, and then it goes out of their mind, and they're not thinking about pushing forward to the next level.
Sure. Yeah. I think we're going to be doing more, more contests, more trainings. We've, and this is obviously not a Microsoft group here, but we use the Microsoft Teams pretty extensively, and having that location is something that we really think is valuable. So everyone has a place. It's like that bulletin board, like you kind of mentioned, everyone has a place to enter in their information and enter in questions. And we are really just encouraging and kind of pointing people back to it. But like we were saying, engagement is an ongoing process, right? And we're always looking for new ways. That's something that we'd love to hear other people's experiences on. That's why we kind of, are in groups like this to hear of other people's experience and how to keep that momentum going. But for us, I can't stress enough, having that centralized location for people to share ideas, to share information has been really helpful for us.
Excellent.
Great. We have one more question in the chat. How did you find out that their engagement had dipped? Did you use the admin insights to find that out?
Yeah, a combination of admin insights and more qualitative stuff. Just kind of asking people, hey, how's it going? We're a small enough corporate organization. We have about, roughly 50 corporate employees, and the analytics team had 10 to 12 of them. And before COVID, we were all in one location, so it was a lot easier to just kind of walk around and ask. And so over the course of that initial period, we would see through admin insights, we would see a little bit of dip in creation of views, but we saw our the viewing numbers be pretty flat. So we could kind of piece some things together that we needed to improve that engagement.
Awesome. Well, if we don't have any other questions, which feel free to reach out through the either the survey or the registration page. There's an email located there. If you have other questions that you'd like to ask Colin, we'd be happy to forward those his way. I'm going to put our survey in the chat right here. We would love to hear your feedback on this meeting, and then also would love to hear on what topics you guys want to see next meeting, future meetings, any ideas, or if you would specifically, or if someone would like to speak. We would love to give you guys the opportunity to share your story. And Colin, thank you so much for presenting today. Awesome presentation. I think everyone really enjoyed it, and we loved hearing your story. So
thank you guys, really appreciate it.
And thank you all for your time today. We will be emailing out the recording in the follow-up email, and it'll also include this survey as well. So thank you so much for tuning in today.
Thank you, everyone.